Hi again. This is a short video to look at sourcing Creative Commons images, how to find images, how to deal with copyright, and how to make sure you attribute correctly in any video products you make. So what I'm going to cover is what Creative Commons is. Creative Commons is a certain type of licensing available nowadays, why to use it in your project, how to find Creative Commons material and how to attribute that material once you've found it and used it. And then finally, thinking forward to how you would deliver your product using a CC license, which would enable you to then share it with the world. And you need to think about that from the beginning to make sure you log things correctly. So what is Creative Commons? To start with, Creative Commons firstly is not a replacement to copyright. It works on top of copyright. In a way, it works because of copyright. Copyright's automatic. Whenever we make a creative work, we have copyright in that creative work. But what Creative Commons allows us to do as copyright creators is to then choose how other people use our work. So we may choose for other people to use it in any way they want, for free, to make money, whatever they want to do, as long as they attribute the person that made that creative work to start with. So there's a range of different types of licenses and a different subsets of those licenses available. And the first thing you really should understand is where to find the source of the truth here. So the most important place to start is the creativecommons.org.au website. I recommend you go to the Australian one over the international one or the American one, which is just creativecommons.org, because the Creative Commons Australia website is specific to our circumstances. And this website has a lot about what Creative Commons is, what the different licenses are, specific uses for different sectors, and there's a whole lot of use cases on the education sector you could look into. So I encourage you to go and have a look at that if you're really interested in Creative Commons. At the simplest level, there's 4 types of components to a Creative Commons license, and there's 6 different license types. So the most basic component is attribution, and attribution is the by symbol. So the by, BY, means you have to attribute the person who created the work. That is the simplest level of attribution, is the attribution by. On top of that, there's an option for non-commercial. So you can choose as a copyright user to license your material to anyone that can use it for any purpose except to make money. And certainly your purposes for education, because you'll be making this for an assessment, is a non-commercial use. So you can use any license you find with a non-commercial tag. The non-derivative, however, is one that you cannot use. What non-derivative means, if I release an image as non-derivative, people can use that image, but they can't change it. And changing an image could be cropping, could be changing the color, or moving it into a different format. So taking a still image and putting it into a video. All of those would be a derivative work. So if you find a license tagged with non-derivative, you cannot use that. And finally, there's share-alike. And share-alike is, in a way, the essence of what Creative Commons is. It's saying, as the copyright creator, you can use this and you have to attribute me, but anything you do, you have to share as well. So it's really encouraging, like a pass it on kind of scenario, where the Creative Commons goes down the chain. So every time someone uses one, it's released in Creative Commons again. So if you find something that has a share-alike tag on it, you have to release your work under Creative Commons. And this becomes, interesting with video, where we use a few different images from a few different people with potentially conflicting license types. We have to do our best to make sure we make everyone happy and we abide by the terms of the license. So those 4 types can then create into 6 different licenses themselves. So at the top level, attribution by, as I said, the simplest. Then attribution by non-commercial, so attribute but don't make money from it. Then there's attribution share-alike. So that's basically attribute and release it under Creative Commons as well. You can use that commercially. You could use that to make money from it. Then there's another one, attribution non-derivative. So basically commercial and non-commercial, but you cannot change it. It's only verbatim copies of that as content. Then there's the 2 triple licenses, which is attribution non-commercial share-alike. So you have to say who made it. You cannot make money from it, and you have to release your product under the same Creative Commons license. Or attribution non-commercial no derivative. So similar to the attribution non-derivative, but this time you can't make money from it. So they're the different types of Creative Commons licenses. In a way, all you should really be looking for is non-derivative. Don't use that, but everything else should be okay. Then there's another element to what you create, and that's we can find things that are in the public domain. And public domain is basically saying there is no copyright on this anymore. Things enter the public domain, they're not put in the public domain. So it's 70 years past the death of authors in most countries is when something enters the public domain. So old photos, old paintings, old literature, things like that enter the public domain when copyright expires. But some people want to put things in the public domain. So Creative Commons has also created a CC0 license, which is basically a license that a copyright holder says, I put this entirely in the public domain. So that means that like all of the other Creative Commons licenses, you can use it, but at this level, you don't have to attribute. It's literally in the public domain. You can do whatever you want with it. So I'll give you a very quick little demo of how to find things, because knowing those licenses is good, but how are you going to find them and apply them in your work? So one really simple way is to use the Google image search. So to do this, you go to Google and you search for images. So I can click on the images tab, and now I'm in Google images search. And say I want to find a business meeting. I want to find a picture of a business meeting. If I search for that, I'll find all these great pictures of business meetings, and I might want to use one of these to talk about business communications. This could actually work for what I want. But right now, it's just showing me everything that's found on those terms. If I want to make sure I can search for attribution, what I go is into Tools here, and if I click on Tools under the Google search bar, there's a pop-up that says Usage Rights. So under Usage Rights, I have Reuse with Modification, or Reuse, or Non-Commercial Reuse with Modification, or Non-Commercial Reuse. So you can see these very similar wordings to what the Creative Commons licensing is, and that's what they are. So usually what I'll do is click Reuse with Modification, is really the one I'm after. Now here's all of the images it's found for reuse with modification. So if I find one of these and that I like, say I like this one, and I click on it, it'll open it up, and I can see that this has come from Flickr, and that's important to pay attention to. Now before I just go and use it, what I have to do is find the license itself. So what I'll do then is click Visit Page, and that will open that Flickr page where that image comes from. And what I'm really looking for is down here, the license. And I can tell by the symbol, this is a Creative Commons license, and it says some rights reserved. So if I click on that there, it will take me to the actual license. So this one's a Creative Commons license, which is attribution generic. So it's just attribution. That's all they're asking for, to attribute that person. So that's great, I find that, and now I can use this image. So I would then download it whatever size I want, preferably the largest, and I would make a note. I would make a note of a few things. I would make a note of the URL where I got it. I would make a note of the person that published it, or the name of the account that it was published under. And I would make note of the name of the file itself, which here is business-meeting. They are all the things I'm going to need to attribute this image in my video. So back to Google, let's have a look at another example. So this one here is interesting. I like the look of this. Now this is from a website called Pexels. I've never heard of that before. So again, I'll visit the page. And on the page here, so this one, I found a CC0 license. So that's Creative Commons public domain. It's basically released under a public domain license by Creative Commons. No attribution required, just use it. And I could always click Learn More about the license and read the licensing terms on that page. Finally, every now and then on Google, you will find an image that you cannot find that attribution. Here's one, it looks like, from the Kremlin. So it's a picture of Vladimir Putin. And if I go visit page, it's got a .ru website, meeting with business representatives. So there's the image. So what I try and do now is find that copyright on this page, which I cannot find. So if I look at that, I can't see Creative Commons information anywhere. I can't see where it's actually released as a file. And this is the issue that we have sometimes. Google will label something as available for reuse, but if we can't find the license on the page, assume we can't use it. Okay, I'll give you another example now using YouTube, because in YouTube as well we can search for Creative Commons material. So if I go to the homepage of YouTube and I do the same kind of thing, if I search for business meeting, I'll find all of these videos of business meetings. But here we have a button, filters. And if you see this filters button, here I can search for Creative Commons licensed material. So now all of this YouTube video material is Creative Commons material. So say I want to use some of this Westacon 66 business meeting. It's a science fiction fantasy conference, I believe. So what I can do now, and if I just pause that for a moment, and if I look under the details here, I can see the license, Creative Commons attribution license, reuse allowed. So it's telling me that I can reuse this video if I wanted to take a snippet of that video. Okay, so that's just a few examples of finding things in both Google and in YouTube, but there's many others. Commons.wikimedia.org is a very good site to find a whole lot of open source or Creative Commons material. And there's many sites on the web like archive.org or the National Film and Sound Archive, or some of the ones listed here on the screen, that let you find things that are specifically either in the public domain or tagged for reuse. So once we've found all of our material, we have to attribute in the video that we make. And this is similar to when we paraphrase or quote in an essay. We have to include that in our bibliography. Same thing with a video, and same thing with using other people's material in a video. So to license with Creative Commons, what we have to do is, on the video itself, put a slide at the end saying where we got that image from, and all of the images that we use in the video, and the music. We can find open source music just like we find images and videos. So that needs to be in the video itself. The way the licensing recommendations work is it is not a document that goes along with the video. It is a slide at the end of the video. And Creative Commons attribution usually includes the name of the author, the name of the work, the location to find the work, which is the website, and what license it was released under, and the location to find that license. So there's 5 components of what you do. And finally, if you've done the right thing by tracking all of the images you've used, attributing them, and making sure that you haven't broken copyright in what you've done, you can release your product to YouTube. You can release your product under a Creative Commons license if you choose. And then hopefully you can share down the line, and other people can find your product in the future and see it as a great example of the work that you've done. I hope this helps. Please have a look at the websites included to find more information on these topics.